Welcome to Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, the golf instruction podcast that helps you take control of your game. Now, here's your host, the founder of Par Breakers Golf Academy and certified Golf Channel Swing Fix instructor, Bernard Sheridan.
And again, I think that's what I use it most for, is for checkups, for initial evaluations, and for checkups to make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Do you find when you're using this technology that it's easier for you to get to the root of the problem faster?
Absolutely. And I think not only that, I think I can identify the issue quicker. I think I get less fooled, or my eye gets less fooled. Now that I've been working with the equipment for more period of time, where I've be able to see something, correlate it to something, quantify it, and then you do that over and over again, and your eye starts to be able to see things, and you kind of do that correlation in your mind, so you get less fooled, is what I think the best way to say it. Is sometimes the swing looks like it's doing something, then you put it on a measuring device, and you see it's doing something else. I don't think that happens quite as much anymore. And I think it really helped me get more simplistic in my teaching. I say this all the time. People think I'm crazy, but I think the more advanced the evaluation is, the more simplistic the remedy usually is. It's because we don't have to guess. We kind of know, well, this is what's going on. Okay, that's fine. One quick tip that's very simplistic that applies to this. I had a guy the other day that had very little lead hip lift through the downswing, wasn't creating a lot of vertical force through his left leg, his front leg, really wasn't using the ground very effectively. So I did this evaluation, we figured out what's going on, and his tip was simply swing on uphill lies right now. Right now, I just want you to feel like you're swinging on uphill lie. This is the idea. He grasped that, he felt that, he could apply that very quickly. So it wasn't, even though we did this 45-minute, pretty advanced evaluation, his tip to fix whatever we found wrong was a quick 10-second tip that he could apply on every tee box and get on a slope, just swing up the hill, get that feeling, and hit his drive that way. So I think it's really helped me kind of build better feels that kind of for the player that are more simplistic, that actually have some real data behind them as well. So I really think it has made me shut up more, which is a good thing as an instructor sometimes, where I talk less. Be able to explain things a little simpler, so the player can grasp something and be confident in the information, because he knows I'm doing everything to make sure that what I'm doing is factual, but also simplify the information that I'm presenting to him. And I think that's what every player kind of wants to a point. They want to know how to get better, but they don't want to be overwhelmed with thoughts and things that might even increase anxiety, not reduce anxiety.
So for not just the players out there who are listening, or the I want to say the amateur players, but for some professionals that we have listening out there, and I know that on social media, in a lot of these different groups, and
Sure.
and I see guys asking questions. I'm thinking about getting a TrackMan. What do you think about that? Things like that. So I know that I use FlightScope. You use TrackMan. Both of them are great units. Both of them give tremendous amount of information. Do you feel that now that, because you can use that and you can get that information and make things happen a lot more easily for you and quicker, would you recommend that if you are a golf instructor, that this is really a necessary part of equipment to help you best serve your student?
I think every situation is different. I mean, financially, you have to make it work. You have to make sure you're teaching enough that you can justify the cost of it. There are a lot of used units available now where you can get them at reduced prices. Put it this way. I don't think necessarily it's a requirement that you have to have one. I think it's great if you do and you can, but I think you have to understand the information. You have to understand the information that these machines are presenting to us, just so you're on par with maybe another instructor that does have it and can speak that language and understands some of these things that are measured, factual things, not theory. So I think you need to understand the information that's coming from these devices more than you need necessarily to have a device itself. If you can have a device, I think it's very important. If you don't have access to a device, you can't rent a device, you can't take your players to somebody that has a device. I think you at least need to have the information that these devices are presenting, just so you understand a little bit better how to explain what's going on. The player will probably understand it and trust you a little bit more because of that. But also, so you're speaking the same language because this technology, amateurs know about it. They know what's coming from this. So you don't want your golfer, your student, to come to you with maybe more information that you have than you're presenting to them. You don't want them to be ahead of the curve than you are. So I think just understanding the information is probably the first step. From there, I'm sure just like you and myself, once you understand the information, how powerful it is and how useful it can be, you find a way to get one. I remember I wrote a check for 25 to TrackMan. I saved up for a year. There's no payment plans. I just knew that this is something that I really wanted to have, that I felt was really important to me as an instructor, and it was worth the sacrifice to save up and get it, because once I got the information, I was exposed to the information, I knew I had to be able to give this information to my students.
Yeah, I know that for me personally, I've been using a launch monitor for 8 years now. I still have my original flight scope, which is a Kudu. It still gives me the numbers that I need to see. It doesn't. The brand new stuff is great. A lot of this is updated through software with that too. So I definitely think that it's a huge addition to making things just run a lot more smoothly. So yeah. So the other thing that I like to touch base on is if you use any type of training aids with your students, and what training aids you would recommend that you like and use often.
It's a good one. I'll be real honest. I don't use a lot of training aids on the lesson tee. It's funny. I mean, you have a big bag inside where I buy training aids all the time. I spend money on training aids every year, especially at the show in the next month. I always buy some, but I don't necessarily. I'm real picky about what I use and what I give to a student. I want to make sure that it works the way I want it to work, not necessarily the way it's marketed to work. And so I would say that I haven't found a ton that I really like. Do I use, alignment sticks occasionally? Yeah, occasionally for little stuff like that. I probably use tees and a dry erase marker more than any other training aid I have. I use a dry erase marker, put a little dot on the golf ball, they hit shots, I see where it's coming off the face. I use tees on the ground to build a little pathway to see when they hit shots off the ground or off a tee, whether they're hitting off the toe or the heel again. So I'll use little things like that more than I use anything like a training that you would buy that's a golf-specific training aid. I haven't found a lot that I really trust that. I think they're maybe good for short-term feelings, but again, you have to get the player to be able to make the swing you want in the environment they're going to play in. So, on the golf course, they're not seeing anything. So I'm always using, even a lot of times, especially on course lessons, we're using old divots, we're using tee markers, we're using twigs on the ground, leaves on the ground, something that I can help them use and apply when they're actually in a round of golf and they need that feeling again. That's why I said sides of slopes, and I probably use slopes more than anything else in my teaching at this point in time. So whether it's a downhill, uphill, side hill slope, I use a lot of slope training, and I think it works very effectively just because it is something that if I give them a feeling using a slope and they're on the golf course and they lose that feeling, you can always find a slope somewhere on the golf course, whether it's the side of the tee box, side of the green, a mounting off a bunker, something like that they can use and get that feeling back. So I think my methodology and I have kind of how my mind works has changed a little bit, more to give my players information and things they can use to help their golf swing that they're going to be able to find on the golf course in a natural setting, just because that's where they're probably going to need it most, not on the driving range standing there, putting it down, getting a feeling for it. So my answer would be probably very little training aids, if anything, alignment rod, tees, but probably slope training or garbage on the ground, leaves, divots, things like that, as much as anything else.
Excellent. And I'm very much of the same mindset. I don't use a lot of physical training aids unless I'm having them do specific drills for certain things to get a feeling, and then kind of forget about that training aid and not really use it anymore. I like the idea of the slopes, and because that's, like you said, they can just basically, when they're wherever they are, they can find a slope. I mean, it's not that difficult to do when you're outside.
Not on a golf course.
No, absolutely. So with the difficulty would be trying to find something that's not a slope on a golf course.
Exactly.
Yeah, because everything is so up and down. Especially, I know where I am in Pennsylvania, it's extremely slopey. So it's a lot more level in Florida than it is here in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
So when you do things in between with your students, have them work on specific things, is there a specific time frame that you like to have as a minimum for them to work on things in between sessions? And if that is, how often are you seeing them? Are you seeing them usually on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis?
That's a great question. I think it obviously some of it's dependent on the player, and it's dependent on when we started working together. So I would say for most of my players, I want to see them more consistently in a shorter duration of time in between the lessons initially. So if you're a new student, you come to me, I'd like to see you twice the first week and maybe twice the second week, just to really establish that concept, to give you a lot of repetition with feedback initially, to help you understand the direction we want to go, that you have a clear picture after the first couple weeks, that you have a direction that you want to go, you know what to do. Then I can give you a little more leeway to have a little more time away from me, where I trust that your practice on your own isn't going to sabotage the practice we were doing together. So that's what I always say. I think initially I want to see them more often, and then we'll kind of taper off from that as we move on. And again, each player is a little bit different. I have some good players that come to me, a college player, a mini tour player, they might even have the chance to see me that often. And it might be something where I can give them information. They understand, they grasp it real quick, and they can kind of start applying it quicker than somebody that's, say, maybe a 15 to 20 handicap that maybe needs a little more attention, a little more understanding of what we're trying to change. But typically, I like to see my players at least once, if not twice a week, if possible. I think that's shown, for me, that's what I've seen as that's shown the best results. Because I think it ends up being that, I do 90-minute lessons only. I don't do hours. So they're all hour-and-a-half lessons at least, and some of them get the 3-hour lessons. That allows them to have their practice time and their lesson kind of all wrapped in one, where they're getting their reps in. They're getting their reps with me, giving them feedback. So I like a lot of their range time with me, and then we also break that up and spend some time on the golf course as well. I think with a lot of my players, after about 3 range sessions, we always try to transition to have a one lease on-course session after every 3 range sessions. I don't like to go a lot of range sessions over and over and over again. I like to transition to the golf course so we can see if the move that we're developing on the range and maybe they're successful with on the range is actually transferring over the golf course and they're able to make that swing there. Or if it's breaking down, then we know maybe it's not a conceptual thing. Maybe it's more of an emotional thing, an anxiety thing that we need to, address sooner rather than later, because we can do all this technical work in the practice area, but if they can't take that technical work that we're doing and apply it to the golf course, it's all for nothing. So we need to kind of nip that in the bud sooner rather than later. So that's why I make sure probably every 3 range sessions that I always go on the golf course to see how they're performing there. And then I hammer my students with text all the time. How'd you play? What happened? So I'm always getting feedback from them too, where I want them to text me directly after the rounds, give me a rundown of what happened, how they played, things like that. So I always try to stay in the loop. I think they appreciate that because they really feel like I care about them, which I do. But also it helps me kind of build a game plan for that next week based on their performance that previous week.
Do you use any type of stat gathering with your students during their rounds so that you can better insight as to what they're doing when they're not with you?
Yeah, I mean, again, everybody's different. Some guys will map out every shot that they hit. They'll send me a text message that's like 4 pages long, and it's every shot they hit. Some guys will just give me basic stats. I leave it up to the player how much information they feel comfortable gathering out there. I've been I bought it. The Arco system, that's the new one with the sensors on the bottom of the grip, bottom of the grip that work with the GPS of the phone. It's good. It's good because you can just turn it on, go, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to touch anything. Eventually, I think what we're probably going to see is something similar to that without the sensors. Between me and you, I mean, I think you just have a GPS app that you can hit a button when you're on the hole where your starting shot is and what club you're hitting, your next shot, what club you're hitting, and just go on that way. Very easy, be a one-touch button. At the end of the round, you give all your data, logistics, where you hit everything, how far you hit everything, fairways, greens, bunkers, up and downs, putts, things like that. And then, like with this information that I'm getting from the system I have, if all my players had that, I could just log into their accounts, and see how they played their rounds, see where they hit their shots, see how they, got out of certain situations. And that would give me a really clear picture of what we need to work on, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses at that point in time. And I think that's going to be the future of golf instruction, is really having more on-course data that we can use to apply to our players to help prioritize how to get them better. And I think this will be, I knock on wood, I think this will be our first step to really being able to lower the average handicap. It hasn't been something that's really come down over a long period of time. Equipment's got better, technology's gotten better. We're better informed as instructors, but we still haven't seen this jump in handicap. I think having stats on course and having that data will really help us start to actually lower handicaps. And I think that's the one missing piece that we've never had. Tour guys have always had it. Stats are huge on tour now. These guys are always using this data to kind of understand what they need to work on. But I think that data is even going to be more powerful for the amateur golfer than it is for the professional golfer, to really understand not only mindset of shots they should be hitting, where they need to stay away from trouble, but what clubs are working, what clubs are not working, what clubs are getting them in trouble, what shots they have around the greens, they need around the greens. So I'm really excited about the future of taking the data that we can get on course from these amateur golfers and be able to apply that to what we're trying to teach them and the direction we're trying to have them go as instructors.
Excellent insight. So the next thing that I want to ask you is, because we're kind of coming to the end of our time frame now, and there's a few things that I always like to finish up with.
Sure.
And one is a little nugget of wisdom that you would give our listeners as to something that you would say in general to golfers as to what they should be doing or what they should be looking for or what they should be working on.
Okay, that's a good one. And I think if I had it, because it's hard to give an idea that's going to work for everybody, because everybody's a little bit different. But yes. I think swing rhythm and swing tempo from a guy that uses a lot of technology, 3D, TrackMan, force plates. The guys that have a better sense of the rhythm of their golf swing actually have usually better technical numbers when I see them on when I'm starting to quantify things. There's a lot of ideas that you can have. You can have the right concept in your mind, but if you have too much tension in your body and your swing rhythm is out of rhythm or out of pace, it's going to be very difficult for you to execute the things that you want to before impact. Because you got to remember, by the time you take the club away, you get back to impact, what are we talking, 1.2, 1.3 seconds? So I think the rhythm of your swing, and that's the one thing you can really gather from watching either a really good ball striker or a tour player, is watch them in real time. We're always looking at everything in slow motion nowadays. I really think we've lost the art or just the ability to look at swings in real time. And so get video, go watch a tour event, go watch a good player at your club, watch their swing rhythm in real time and try to gather that rhythm and see how patient they look. They go back, they're patient in transition, then they create a ton of speed before impact. So I think taking that idea of watching rhythm and working on your own rhythm can help you play with whatever technique you have. It'll help you apply a new concept that you want to make that change to maybe make your body work more effectively, or somebody that's not even working on their swing. It's going to allow them to probably make compensations somewhere in their swing to allow them to hit good shots. You think of like a Jim Furyk or something like that, or a Fred Couples. Maybe they don't technically get to these positions that we think are good or where we want the player to be, but they're so smooth in their rhythm, they're able to make adjustments to get the club back on plane, make center face contact, and really have control of their golf swing. So I think that'd be the one thing I would tell everybody is really work on your swing rhythm, your ability to control anxiety and tension in your body, and that kind of goes with rhythm as well.
So if our listeners are in the Miami area and they would like to take a lesson with you, how can they get in touch with you, and where exactly are you located so that they can know that?
Sure. I'm located at a great resort in Miami, Florida. It's actually in Coral Gables, which is a little area inside Miami near the University of Miami. It's called the Biltmore Hotel. We got an old Donald Ross golf course on property built in 1925. It's all historic golf course, historic property. They used to play the Miami 2 ball there. Gene Sarazen and Ben Hogan won it 1 year. So in the 20s and 30s, that was like the golf course in Miami. But you can always come see me there for again, I do the personalized golf schools. You can find me on Twitter at UGOTJB, you got JB. You can email me at jbruton@biltmorehotel.com. Anytime you want to have any questions or you want some information about coming down, as at this time of the year, it's 73 degrees. This is not a bad spot to come down. From now until I'd say mid-May, late May, the weather's perfect in Miami. We really stay somewhere between low 70s to high 70s, very little moisture, very little rain. It's pretty much paradise this time of year. Summertime, it gets a little swampy and hot, but this time of year, it's great.
Well, Justin, it was an absolute pleasure having you. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And until we meet again, as we say here at Par Breakers, or at Breaking Par, Par Breakers is my academy. We say try to keep it in the short grass.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Happy holidays to you. And
you too.
And hopefully when I'm in Miami, I'll stop in and we'll just have a little bit of fun.
Definitely. See you soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care.